Hello dear viewer, today I've got some Kino Lorber discs to talk about and show to you. Today I've got 2 Blu-rays and 3 4K discs here. I'm not going to reveal them just yet because I want to keep it a bit of a surprise. But these are all discs that I got here in the UK through Boutique Home Video, who import these discs from the US and sell them locally. I'm sure a lot of UK Blu-ray collectors know about them by this point, but I'll include more information later in the video and in the description of the video. So what did I get? Well, first up, a 4K disc which does not yet have a UK release on 4K at all, and it is an excellent film from the 1990s. I'm talking about Face Off from John Woo, the iconic film starring John Travolta, Nicolas Cage, where they both have to play each other because their faces get swapped. Not only is it a brilliant concept because I love watching the actors playing each other, and they're actually both very convincing at it, but it's also a great action film with some action sequences that are very typically John Woo, but also such high energy, and quite frankly they looked very expensive to make. In today's cinematic landscape, we don't see many films like this today, where very talented filmmakers are given almost free rein to do whatever they want. Films made today are very micromanaged. They're made by committee with lots of writers and rewriters, with lots of producers overlooking every inch of the filmmaking process. So maybe Face Off was just something that slipped through the net, but I think it is so gloriously creative, so entertaining, and just one of a kind. But anyway, the 4K disc from Kino Lorber, it's taken from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. So you know that there's tons of detail available, and it's all there, up on the screen. You can see detail in absolutely everything, the close-ups of people's faces, in the slow motion sequences, and in all of the big action explosion scenes. The Dolby Vision HDR grade is very welcome. It might not be one that makes itself most apparent in this film because it has quite a 1990s colour palette. You know, it's not over the top vibrant with your very extreme colours, but the Dolby Vision grade definitely does help in all of the usual areas such as contrast, etc. The special features that are on the included Blu-ray, you've got 3 different audio commentaries, deleted scenes with audio commentary, you've got a feature on John Woo, and there is a making of Face Off featurette. And inside this package, underneath the slipcover in the actual case, there is a reversible sleeve so you can have both artworks showing. Moving on, the next 4K from Kino Lorber is Red Dragon, the very famous prequel to Silence of the Lambs, where Anthony Hopkins reprises his role as Hannibal Lecter. This film brings back some particular memories for me because when this was released, I was 11 years old, so quite young. I remember Blockbuster Video was still around and we would go there to rent DVDs, and I remember when this was released and the wall was like plastered with the cases of the DVD, and even though I'd never seen the film, thankfully at that age, I remember being terrified by this cover image. I don't know what it was, just Anthony Hopkins on here looking menacingly just absolutely frightened me as a child. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this 4K disc. The film itself, it's a prequel, as I said, to Silence of the Lambs, directed by Brett Ratner, who in my opinion comes nowhere near as close to what Jonathan Demme did in Silence of the Lambs. Nevertheless, he made a very enjoyable film. Something that this has going for itself is the calibre of the actors involved. You have Anthony Hopkins, Edward Norton, Ralph Fiennes, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Emily Watson, just to name 5. That is an absolutely stacked cast, with all of them giving really good performances in my opinion. Again, this disc is taken from a 4K scan of the original 35mm camera negative. So there's tons of detail here. I may be repeating myself, but the image looks beautiful. And again, we've got a Dolby Vision HDR grade. This film is a bit more colourful than Face Off, although this film is darker because a lot of it is set at night or it's in very shadowy places, and that's where I think the Dolby Vision grade does help as well, because as we know, in those sort of shadowy portions of the screen, that's where HDR can really dial in those darker colours. In terms of special features on the Blu-ray, there is an audio commentary with Brett Ratner, there is an isolated score with Danny Elfman talking about the score. And beyond that, there's so many different featurettes on the disc. there's just so much to get into after watching it. So I think for fans of the film and fans of the character Hannibal Lecter, you'll be pleased with this disc. This next film that I'm about to introduce to you is a film that I love dearly, and I think it's underrated, if you'll allow me to use that word. The film is Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. This is starring Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges, directed by one Michael Cimino, who famously his career suffered after making Heaven's Gate. I absolutely love this film. First of all, Clint Eastwood is brilliant here, and he's an actor that often gets sort of described as playing just the same kind of character in every film, even in the ones that he directs, where he's playing the very sort of stone-faced, grumpy-looking guy who never reveals too much about himself. In this film, I feel like he's playing a much different character, a much more open, emotional character. And I think a lot of that it's brought out in the script, obviously, but also in the sort of buddy movie that we have here with Jeff Bridges' character, a very young Jeff Bridges, who is very playful, very cheeky, but also has a sort of somber side to him. I should say about the story, Clint Eastwood plays this veteran thief who is trying to hide from some of his former partners because they believe that he cheated them out of some money. And Jeff Bridges also plays a thief, but a much more amateur one. And it's in coming together that they both go on the run and then decide to do one last big job. Honestly, it's such a good film. It's got the heist stuff, it's got the emotional stuff. The characters are given so much time to progress. It feels like such a fully fleshed out story. And I think, for my money, one of Clint Eastwood's best performances, one of Jeff Bridges' best performances. And Michael Cimino, a great director. Even what happened to Heaven's Gate, I think there's a lot of promise in what was made in that film. Of course, The Deer Hunter, a masterpiece. And even some of the other films he made, like Year of the Dragon, later on, I greatly enjoy. Again, I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself. It's from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. It looks beautiful. Detail is all there. This was sort of peak mid-1970s American filmmaking. So it has that sort of iconic cinematography, this certain look, which looks so good on film. And thankfully, all of the film and the grain is intact. Nothing has been messed with. The Dolby Vision is great. The audio sounded great as well. Comparing this to the older Blu-ray from Second Sight Films that I have in my collection, this is such an upgrade that I was just so pleased. And I'm sure you've gathered from how I've been talking about it, it's a film that I love very dearly. And in fact, on this watch, I watched it with my dad for the first time, and he greatly enjoyed it as well. So a very memorable experience for me watching it on the Kino disc. Now, a couple of Blu-rays from Kino Lorber that seemingly have no signs of getting released over here, so I'm glad that I got the imports. First one, Backtrack, or sometimes known as Catch Fire. This film, directed by Dennis Hopper, starring himself alongside Jodie Foster. There's also so many other actors in this film that just pop up. Some very famous musicians pop up. It's almost very jarring when these very famous people just show up in the film, so I won't spoil any of that for you, but you will be surprised about who is in this film exactly. Jodie Foster plays an artist who witnesses a mob killing, and they start to chase her because they obviously don't want any evidence of the killing around. Dennis Hopper is hired to hunt her down and assassinate her. But of course, what happens in hunting her down, he starts to fall in love with her. And if that sounds crazy, that doesn't even begin to describe how weird and wonderful this film actually is. If you've seen any of the other films that Dennis Hopper has directed, he does things a certain way. Things get very strange, and this is no different. This is not a straightforward film. Whether that makes it good or bad in your eyes, I don't know. But I had such a good time watching this. I loved the design of the whole film. It really is something special. The Blu-ray looked great, not much to report in terms of that. There were no problems to my eyes, and I had such a great time watching it. On the Blu-ray, there is an audio commentary that is very insightful. It has one of the people that shows up in the film as a little cameo. So Backtrack, or Catch Fire, is a real oddity of a film, one I have a lot of admiration for. Whether it's good or bad, I mean, I've not really settled on that. I think it's good. I think it's really good, actually, because it made me feel good. So it depends on what your barometer of good or bad is, but I had a great time. And then we come to Terminal Invasion, starring the one and only Bruce Campbell, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who did the first Friday the 13th. I had zero idea that this film even existed before this Kino disc was announced. And that is because apparently this was a television movie made by the Sci-Fi Channel in the US. From listening to the audio commentary, it was made very last minute for a very low budget. And, you know, that comes across in the film. I'm not going to lie, this isn't some high masterpiece of filmmaking. What it is basically a retelling of John Carpenter's The Thing, but set at this small airport where, yeah, there is an alien taking over people's bodies and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But with Bruce Campbell at the center of this story, and I almost feel like Bruce Campbell and the kind of craziness that he can go to was not utilized enough in this film. I wanted him to go full crazy, you know, full Evil Dead 2 in this film, which does not happen. Nevertheless, it's a performance that I greatly enjoyed. And I enjoyed the audio commentary almost as much as the film itself, because the filmmakers talk about the technology of the time, and they talk about digital filmmaking, which was just, you know, sort of coming into the mainstream of filmmaking. Don't expect anything absolutely mind-blowing from this, but if you love Bruce Campbell and you're some kind of Bruce Campbell completionist, then this is one to get. So quite a broad selection of stuff from Kino Lorber there that I have been enjoying lately. All thanks to Boutique Home Video, who import these to the UK and just make them so much more accessible to us. Because I've talked about on the channel, you know, buying from Amazon in the US and getting them to send discs here, they always arrive damaged. And particularly if you're precious about slipcovers and stuff that are on the Kino releases, these will not come intact from Amazon, I can guarantee. So yeah, Boutique Home Video, it's a great option if you're looking at importing some Kino Lorbers or Criterion discs. There's no getting around the costs of importing. But there's so much choice from Boutique Home Video, and if you order from them, you get them in a matter of days. And yeah, it's a great service. If you like more Kino Lorber recommendations from me or 4K recommendations, click the video that's on screen right now, and I'll be there for you with more recommendations. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.